Hi again, everyone. This is Joe Henches with Beyond the Chart. Today is Saturday, June 7th, 2014, and this is Technical Analysis Review of the Stock Market. The question today is, can one pattern trump everything else? Okay, the Dow was up 88 points yesterday, and we've got this pattern that we're still holding, okay? This is an ending diagonal pattern. This is a classic pattern. I have a hard time arguing against the pattern. I have moved the corrective intermediate correction 4, wave 4, in here, and it's kind of a complex wave 4 because 3 ended back here at the top in August, and then we had a flat A, B, C, A, and then we got a zigzag for B, and then we got a C, a 5-wave C down in here for 4 that completed this corrective action from 4 from August through the end of January. Now, one thing I'm going to note is this picture, this entire picture here is almost identical to, almost exactly identical to, that may be a little redundant, to a diagram on page page 65 of the Elliott Wave Principle by Frost and Prechter. Now, this is like the Bible of the Elliott Wave, okay? And this was produced in 1978. And this entire corrective picture was laid out almost identical to this on page 65, figure 2.2, if you have the book. Go take a look at it. And I think we'll see this is what's played out. And now we have this ending diagonal. And the other thing about this ending diagonal is a quote from page 38 of the book, where they talk about the fifth wave, the fifth wave of an ending diagonal often ends in a throwover, quote unquote, i.e. a brief break of the trend line connecting the endpoints of waves 1 and 3. Okay, so here's the ending diagonal, here's the end of wave 1, and here's the end of wave 3, and here's the top. We're throwing over. So the real question is going to be, do we then get a reversal in here and we roll back down? Now, the reason I said, does one pattern trump everything else? Let's keep, because we're going to take a look at indicators and some other things. And some things are, you can really make a fairly bullish scenario right now. But you have this situation with this ending diagonal that looks very negative. Now, the reason why I think you have to be a little bit cautious about these is because sometimes patterns have a tendency to evolve into something else. And so something else could be going on here. And then, 3 months from now, we go back and reclassify this as something else. But right now, this is the best picture. Let's take a look at this on a weekly basis. Okay, so here you see it, same thing, tight little triangle breaking out up here. Here's the top of this really big broadening picture that I've told you about before. And this is a scenario that intuitively to me makes the most sense. The SPX also in this very tight ending diagonal, and we're getting this throw over to the upside. And I've seen this before. This is not unique or unusual. And me going back, quoting that from the book, I'm just trying to show you that, there is precedent for this. This is a characteristic that does happen with this. As a matter of fact, just for curiosity, I want to show you an ending. It was an ending diagonal, and not of like an intermediate wave in Hewlett-Packard. Last summer. Some of you, if you guys were around with me in August, September, I talked about this. And you can see how this ending diagonal in here, it dropped down. I really thought it was going to go all the way to the bottom here, but didn't quite get there. But yeah, it tried to, throw over to the top, to the upside here. It actually squeezed all the way out. That's what caused it to lose a lot of its power, I think, rather than breaking back in here 2/3 of the way out. So that was another example of an ending triangle. Now, we're not out into the apex of this triangle here. So if we get this thing to roll back down and we break down, we could get a fairly powerful move down to the downside. But there are other things that we need to take a look at here. Now, here's the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq's rallying back. Now we got this little doji bar up in here. You know, you're above the Keltner channels. You get a doji bar like back up in here. That was a top. You got a couple of them up in here. You're at an extreme when you're outside the Keltner channels. And when you get these little doji bars, you got to get a little bit cautious. Okay, so just, you know, making you aware of that. When you look at this on a weekly basis, we had this divergence on the Nasdaq, but then we did get some corrective action. Okay, so it pulled it back down in here. Now we're back above the 10-week moving average and pushing higher. So, you know, maybe we're going to retest this high here. Maybe Nasdaq's going to do something differently. But right now, you just have to, when I get a signal on a stock, you got to go with it. And if it's contrary to what I think might be happening in the market, like if I think the market may be topping out, then you just have to hold a tight stop. I mean, that's what you got to, it's the way you got to play it. Did I do the, I'll come back to the New York Composite. Now the Russell 2000, this is one, remember I told you how when I thought we had a broadening top and I drew these lines in like this. I had a line here and I had a line here. That's not very good, but it touched that point, okay? And so I thought we had a broadening top type thing going on, but then as this started to go into kind of a drawn out type of motion, I really got cautious about it, and I thought, okay, it's not playing out. So now all of a sudden we're getting this type of move in here, and I think there's a realistic chance that this is a, you know, shoulder, head and shoulder, and that we then come back down around and do this, okay, and break. But, you know, this is what to watch for. This is what I'll be watching for in the Russell 2000 to see if that plays out. Okay, I gotta go back to my mouse to get back in control. Okay, so that's, and did I, New York Composite? New York Composite, again, also very similar to, you know, the Dow and the SPX. Now, and I mean, it's a beautiful looking rising diagonal ending triangle. I mean, you really, it's hard to argue with that, but I'm not getting any divergence in here. We are getting overbought. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, if we look at where we're at, we're as overbought. What's the RSI index in here? The RSI reading is 78.03. And that is equal to what we had right here at 78.8 and right here at 76. Okay, so we are right at the point of where we had right here on the market on September 18th. And then what happened? It pulled back down. So we're at an extreme on the RSI. Now, I always get cautious about those because sometimes when you get extremely overbought, now say if this were to go to 80 or 80 plus, sometimes that's a signal that you got a new leg up to the upside. Okay, not necessarily. Now, the other thing to look at is, okay, where's the ADX? The ADX is at 19. It's below 20. Now, it has been rising a little bit, but it's not really in a strong trending motion at all. So that's part of what you look at. Okay, is it strong trending? Yes or no? No. Okay, then I might give a little more weight to the fact that I've got an extreme RSI. Because if I was in a strong trending, if it was above 20, and I had this RSI, then I would give not so much weight to that signal. Okay, so that's how I think about it. All right, so that's the that's pretty much the indices. Let's take a quick look at the short-term trading index. That bounced back up. Okay, so it did not go down to that extreme reading, so we're not getting the extreme bullish reading at that I like to see for a top. I know that doesn't sound right, but that's what it's kind of, again, when you get a signal all the way down here, it means that very bullish activity is going on, and because it's at an extreme, it's meant to be a contrary signal, therefore signaling that you might be at a top. Okay, that's why that I say that. Okay, now let's take a look at the VIX. CBOE. Okay, so this okay, I kept saying, well, is the divergence holding? Is the divergence holding? Well, no, it's not. It just broke yesterday. And look at this dramatic move down. So, I mean, we went to a lower low. Now, do you have to have divergence? I can go back and find numerous situations where the market, the VIX bottomed and turned up without divergence, okay? So it was just nice that we had divergence to reinforce a possible signal, but you do not have to have divergence to necessarily have a bottom, okay? But this is getting pretty low. I mean, you got to sit back and say, if you're looking for a top and watching for a top, do you watch for it up in here, or do you watch for it down here? You watch for it down here because that's where the VIX is really, really low. Okay, the high-low index has also made a move, finally, a big move. And look at this. So this big pop, a lot of new highs were hit yesterday on the market. And it took out, this is the highest reading since back in October. Now, we're not at an extreme that we had in May of last year, but we're getting up here. And this October reading was what, 456. New highs exceeding new lows by 456. We had 365 on Friday. So that's another sign that, it's, pretty good little move to the upside. We're getting high to the point where, something could be topping. Next one that we want to take a look. Okay, I'm going to take a look at the various ETFs in here. Semiconductors. Semiconductors very strong, continue to push very high. And again, this looks like it's gotten a little overdone. This doji bar up in here looks a little overdone to me. The Homebuilders is the next one. Homebuilders broke out of this. I drew this little trend line in here. We could be doing a little reversal action to the bottom. We'll have to see, do we get above this trend line? It could also just, be a pullback to this red line. Okay, so we'll see whether or not we break above the red line or do we reverse and come back down. So there's always an alternate scenario that might be playing out, and you have to think about that because you can't just say, oh, well, this is definitely a head and shoulders bottom. Well, let's go with it. The financial ETF. These guys are really nice bull, strong move in here, push to new highs above the Keltner channels. So again, we've gone to extremes. We're above the Keltner channels, kind of like the way we did up in here, and up in here. Okay, so we've gotten to extremes. It'd be not unusual to see a pullback. I want to take a look at something we hadn't looked at all, I don't think, and that's the gold-silver index, the Philadelphia XAU. I used to look at this years ago. I'm going to get back to watching this more closely. This looks like a potential big head and shoulders, but because there was divergence on this this move to the downside on a weekly chart, but I'm not seeing divergence on this move here. Notice how the red went to strong, went to a new high. This went deeper on this sell-off on the RSI. So I'm not getting divergence on this move. So on a daily chart, I don't see this bottoming just yet. But we'll have to keep an eye on this. And I'm going to start watching this on a more regular basis, the XAU. And the other one is the Philadelphia Oil Services Index. It's another one that I have not looked at. And we'll start looking at if I can find it. There it is. Okay, this index looks like it's had a pretty good little move, and it looks like 5 waves up, so therefore I think we're in corrective action. And given the corrective action, we got a 3-wave move down. So I think that's A. I think we then got B coming up in here, and since it's 3 waves, I think that it'll pull back probably to the start of A, so I wouldn't be surprised to see it pull back up into here, but then come back down for a C move. So that's what I'm thinking is happening with oil services. All right, let's take a look at some stocks now. Apple. Apple is looking, I think we've hit the end of wave 3 up in here. My target was 47 to 49, and we went to a little over 50, 51, okay? So, and I based that target on what I was seeing in this 5th move. So let me move this up a little bit and move this up over here. I think this is 5th move because I think when you look at this, this was like a little wave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so there's a 5-wave move within this 5th wave. So now what I'm expecting, because I think we've had 1, 2, let me go to this. Because we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think what we're going to do is we're going to come back down and we're going to correct down and probably into this area in here where you get support. Okay, then I'm expecting that would be so we've had wave 3, that would be wave 4, as long as it doesn't go below this point. This is absolutely critical because wave 4 cannot go below and overlap wave 1 in here. Then I'm expecting it to go back up and maybe go to slightly new highs above here. Maybe, I don't know. We'll have to see where we correct to. Okay, but this is what I'm expecting on Apple. This is the look I've got. Okay, let's take a look at Amazon real quick. Oh, let's go back over here. All right, I talked last week that I thought Amazon was going to bounce because we were getting divergence down into here. And, you know, it has continued this bounce up very nicely. But you have this 55 very strong down. Okay, so you're kind of going counter to this intermediate move. I wouldn't be surprised to see it come all the way back up and test this resistance and then roll back down and get support again. I mean, you could form a head and shoulders. I mean, if you get another pullback like this pullback and you get that over here, you could form a head and shoulders bottom that takes you up. We'll just have to watch and see what kind of action we get off of that. I am actually, but depending, you know, based on the fact that we've had a big move up, I'm actually expecting more move to the downside. So I'm kind of looking for this to be like an ABC type correction and then roll back down and break the trend line. That's what from a big picture, that's what I'm thinking about on Amazon. All right, I'm going to take a look at 4 oil services stocks. And Apache, look at this stock. We're getting a little divergence on a short-term basis in here. So, you know, basically I'm like, okay, let me back in, please, because I want to see you come back down a little bit and let me get a re-entry into this thing, because we have now come right to the neckline, almost exactly to the penny. I mean, this is amazing. Amazing picture that's, you know, pulling out here. This is a huge head and shoulders bottom, okay? And if this goes, this is going to go to at least these highs, and if not higher. I mean, it's going to go a lot higher than that, actually. I think it's going to have a chance of making up here around 130 plus. It's going to be the distance of this head added to this neckline is going to be that move, okay? So that's what we're coming in for. But typically the fact that it's gone and made this strong move and covered this big distance and now is hitting this neckline, I'm expecting to have it run into a little bit of resistance and roll back down. Okay, so that's what I'm expecting. I'd like to see it get back on board. Back here in April, we got in right in here, got out here and get out here, part here and part in here. Made a really nice trade, 120% return on the option trade in here, okay? My mistake was I didn't get back in here. When this closed below the 10 right in here, and it broke the high of that bar and closed above the 10, I should have gotten back. I should have got back in right there and then rode it. And maybe I would have got out right here and then got back in again right over in here and then just keep riding it. So now I'm like, I'm kicking myself because I didn't get back in on this thing. And so now I'm waiting to see for some kind of a re-entry point to have the chance to get back in again. So this looks like, if this, what is this? I haven't really looked at the wave count, so I'm not going to go into that right now. I'll have to take a look at that from a, spend a little more time on it, see if there is a wave count that makes sense. Okay, Apache, Diamond Offshore, there it is. Okay, this is one, I was inputs. We made a really nice play on this over like a 3-day period. My initial target was 47. We hit it, so I grabbed it, exited everything. And here's why. Because the 21 was still above the 55. And I thought, if the 21, see how the gray line is below the 55? If it was like that, then I would have stuck with it and tried to ride it for longer. But the fact that it wasn't made me think that it was going to possibly snap back And so I thought, why don't I just grab all of the profit and then I'll get back and I can look for a re-entry to the downside again, because I still think there's a chance of it heading down to test those prior lows. And Tesoro. Tesoro's pushing higher in here. Looks nice. I don't see an entry point. You know, perfect place to have gotten in would have been right in here, and then try to stay in. But right now, I don't see anything. You know, we are approaching this area where, you know, a lot of congestion choppiness chopped us up in December. And so it looks like resistance is coming in here, so I have to be careful about that. And then Valero is also another one that just is kind of, I'm a little unsure what's going on with this. It's starting to tighten in. See how the moving averages are getting really close in here? And it's really hard for me to see for sure what it wants to do. My tendency is to think, because there was a lot of bearish divergence in here, when you look at here's the RSI, okay, there was a lot of bearish divergence going on, but it may have just corrected itself down to this trend line, but I'm still a little bit cautious about it, so I don't see that strong a signal. And still, when you look at this, I mean, see how there's just really tight around the you know, overlapping right around the 20 and just right in here like this. There's no trend going on, okay, very weak, no trend. So I'm hesitant to even look at taking any kind of a position in here unless we get a substantial break to the downside in here. So, all right, we've had a long video. I think that's about going to do it for today. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll look at some trade ideas, review the ones from last week, and look to see what we might have for the coming week. This is Joe from Beyond the Chart. Thanks for stopping by. Share the video and share the post, and have a great weekend, everyone.